The Dale Warner murder trial is wrapping up in Lenawee County. Warner is accused of murdering his wife Dee in 2021, then welding her inside a fertilizer tank where she was found 3 years later. Mel Andrews is covering the trial for us. And Mel, you've done such a great job with this trial and coverage of it for WTO and our audience. But so we're at the closing argument stage. Give me an idea. Just catch me up on what's going on.
So closing arguments are going to happen tomorrow morning. It will go prosecution, defense, and then prosecution will have a chance to rebut. The judge will then issue jury instructions, and then 4 alternates will be chosen, and then they can actually go home. It's a little different than I've seen it in other courts. They can go home and then they're called back if needed. I've seen in other courts they go to another room and they can't talk or deliberate about the case unless called upon. It would actually be pretty terrible to be an alternate, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So when will the jury get together? How does it all lay out?
So the jury has been together for all this time. We're 3.5 weeks in right now. Again, there is no time limit either on these closing arguments. I've seen where it's about an hour or so. The judge in this case has not set any limits. Those jury instructions could take about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we expect that the jury will get the case. So
they'll probably break around noon hour and then give it to the jury eventually?
We'll just see. We don't know. I think that's maybe a good guess, but we just don't know.
You know, we've all followed the daily reporting that you've been doing. When we get to the deliberations, you think they'll take that long? It just seems all the evidence is pretty damning. I would think that it should be a quick case, but were there any wrinkles in the defense that you would think that may not happen?
Well, I think if you believe that Dale Warner did kill his wife, then that's what you feel. And a lot of people passionately believe that he killed his wife and that it's a no-brainer, but you just never know, if that's your thinking, who you're also going to get on the jury. You may have a few people, you may have half, we don't know, that say he didn't do it. So they're going to have to try to find a way to come to the middle. And don't forget, you know, they've not been able to talk about the case up until now. So they're going to get in there and maybe just small talk a little bit. What did you think about this? Oh my gosh, could you believe that? Familiarize themselves with that. Then maybe they're going to want to go through some of the evidence. And then they're going to have to go, if they decide that he is guilty of murder, then they need to go through each element of the crime.
Well, yeah, I know from other previous trials we've covered, there's different counts.
Right.
How many multiple counts do you expect?
So he's facing 1 charge of murder. Now, that can be murder in the first degree, which is premeditated, or it can be second-degree murder and then tampering with evidence. So I am reading to you, and this is a graphic that we created directly from the judge's instructions that he will read. So the defendant must have caused the death of Dee Warner. That is, that Dee Warner died as a result of blunt force trauma and or strangulation. Second, that the defendant intended to kill Dee Warner. Third, that this intent to kill was premeditated, that is, thought out beforehand. And fourth, that it was deliberate, which means that he considered the pros and cons of the killing and thought about and chose his actions before he did it. There must have been real and substantial reflection for long enough to give a reasonable person a chance to think twice about the intent to kill. The law does not say how much time is needed. It is for you to decide, jurors, if enough time passed under the circumstances of this case. The killing cannot be the result of a sudden impulse without thought or reflection. Now, moving to second-degree murder, this is what must be proven. You must also consider the lesser charge of second-degree murder. First, that the defendant caused the death of Dee Warner, that is, that Dee Warner died as a result of blunt force trauma and or strangulation. Second, that the defendant had one of these 3 states of mind. He intended to kill, or he intended to do great bodily harm to Dee Warner, or he knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that death or harm would likely be the result of his actions. And he is accused of strangling Dee Warner, and that takes time. Do you know what I mean? So there is a chance for you to stop doing that and choose differently.
And what's really out there is the fact that he put her body inside a ammonia tank.
Allegedly, and that speaks more, I think, to the tampering with evidence charge that he's also facing. So this is why I say don't feel any certain way if we don't see a verdict right away, because they have to go through all of this bit by bit and see that they all agree beyond a reasonable doubt that he did all of these things.
Okay, during the deliberations, you'll be doing what? You'll be in the courtroom waiting?
Yeah, so they're not going to let us know, the media, if there is a question. And this jury's been asking a ton of questions, I'm sure you've noticed, maybe 100 questions. They're very attentive, they ask a lot of questions, so we're going to be in there just in case they ask a question, because sometimes asking a question can also turn into, what do we do if we can't agree, which could be another issue. Also, we are going to have 30 minutes warning of a verdict, so we will immediately send out an alert on the WTOL app, and then we'll start our stream, and we will stream the verdict live.
Mel, thank you for your insight on that. Looking forward to seeing how it all turns out. We want to remind you about our extended coverage on this trial. We've been tracking this case since the very beginning. You can watch all our extended coverage right now on WTOL 11 Plus. Just download WTOL 11 Plus on your TV and watch for free.